Okay, I need to talk about this book because I have so many thoughts. After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is not your typical romance, and honestly, it's not even a romance at all. It's about what happens after the romance, after the marriage, after the happily ever after that most books fade out on. And honestly, it was worth the read. Hi, I'm Tanya. Welcome back to my channel where we talk about books, lifestyle, and all the little things that make life feel intentional and inspiring. Today, I'm doing a full spoiler-filled discussion, so if you haven't read After I Do, click off and come back later. We're going to be talking about the themes, the choices, the characters, what I loved about it, and what made me and many other readers mad. This is going to be a brutally honest conversation, so grab a tea or a coffee and let's dive in. Okay, first of all, starting this book, I had no expectations whatsoever. I never heard about the author and I never read the reviews, so I went in blind. I thought I was getting a romance, but what I got was so much more. Let's just set the stage. Lauren and Ryan are college sweethearts, having met at the age of 19. They've been together for 11 years, but married for 6, and now their spark is completely gone. The story begins with a tense argument, illustrating how their relationship has become filled with resentment, leading them to fight over minor things because they have difficulty communicating their feelings. The silence between them grows heavy. It's like they're existing in the same space, but they're not living together anymore, if you know what I mean. So they do something drastic. They decide to separate for a year. No contact, no checking in. The idea is after the year, they're gonna get together and decide if they still want to be married. And honestly, on paper and to me, that sounds crazy, but in the book, it makes sense. It's both bold and heartbreaking because you can still feel how much love there is, but also how much disappointment and disconnection there is. It's not a marriage ruined by cheating or a huge betrayal, it's the quiet distance that grew between them. And that's what makes this book powerful because it mirrors real life and many people experience this too. One thing I absolutely loved about this book is that it dares to ask the question, what really happens after the happily ever after? Most romance novels, movies, and even shows end at the big moment. The proposal, the wedding, the yes. And so we're trained to think that that's the destination. But After I Do flips that and says, no, that is just the starting line. And honestly, that's what makes it real, because the challenge isn't finding someone to marry you. The challenge is waking up every single day and choosing to keep loving them, to still talk to them when you're exhausted, to fight fair even when you're mad, and to not let routine swallow the spark. I have some notes I made on my phone, so I will refer to them throughout this video. The first point being, Lauren at one point said, Ryan and I were happy. We really were, until we weren't anymore. And the strangest part was, I couldn't tell you exactly when it stopped. That hit me, because isn't that how it happens in real life? You don't notice the exact date that love starts to feel different. You just wake up one morning and you realize you're not laughing like you used to, you're not touching like you used to, and the space between you feels heavy. And Lauren and Ryan, they don't stop loving each other because of some explosive betrayal, but because they stopped choosing each other. Not out of hate, but neglect. And that to me is more heartbreaking than a scandal or a love triangle, because that is real. It can happen to anyone in any long-term relationship if you stop putting in effort. Another huge theme in this book is identity, specifically Lauren realizing that she doesn't know who she is outside of Ryan. Because think about it, how many of us, especially women, are told that the end goal is finding your person, that once you have them, everything falls into place. So you pour everything into them, into the relationship, and in the process, you forget about you. Even Lauren admits this in the book. She says, I couldn't remember the last time I'd done something just because I wanted to. Everything was about Ryan, about us, about being his wife. During the year apart, she's finally forced to face herself. She goes back to her family, she reconnects with her old hobbies. She takes time to just be Lauren again, not Ryan's wife. And watching her do that was honestly one of the most rewarding parts of the book for me, because it reminded me that you can't show up fully in a marriage if you've lost yourself. You can't be half a person trying to love someone else. And I think that's one of the author's biggest points here. Sometimes you have to lose the relationship, or at least step away from it for a bit to remember who you are on your own. Okay, now let's talk about communication, because this is what made me want to scream into my pillow. The silence between Lauren and Ryan was so frustrating, but also painfully real. They would sit next to each other, but not say the thing that they were actually feeling. And you're reading it and you're like, just talk, just freaking say it. And you want to shake the character. But then you realize, damn, this happens in real life too. Ryan says at one point, "I thought you knew. I thought you could tell what I needed." And Lauren shoots back with, "I thought you'd tell me." That right there is the entire problem. We think love means that the other person should just know, that we shouldn't have to say it, and those silences, they pile up until they're not small anymore. They become walls. That's what makes this book so powerful. Their marriage doesn't die because of some big dramatic affair. It dies slowly, in the quiet, from avoidance. And that to me is scary, because anyone who's in a relationship knows how easy it is to fall into a pattern of not speaking up. And I'll be honest with you, as a reader, I just wanted to shake them. I was so mad. Like, if you just said half of the things you were thinking, maybe you wouldn't even be here. But the more I sat with it, the more I realized that that was the point. The villain was the silence in the story, and Taylor Jenkins Reid captured that painfully well. Okay, now we need to talk about the elephant in the room. Lauren and Ryan sleep with other people during their separation. Now, personally, this part was tough for me. Like, I get the intention of the year apart for them to find themselves, but when they end up sleeping with other people, I had to pause. For me, that choice doesn't sit right. In my own values, that would be betrayal, even if they're on a break. And honestly, it made it harder for me to root for them as a couple. At that point, I was like, you might as well get a divorce. Because part of me kept thinking, if the whole point of the year apart was to figure out if you can find your way back to each other, then why bring other people into the mix? But then again, I get why she did that and why she wrote it. It adds a layer of messiness. It forces both Lauren and Ryan to confront what they really want. Lauren has this moment of realizing that intimacy without the connection doesn't mean anything. She says something along the lines of, "I wanted comfort and all I found was emptiness." And that to me was real, because I think the author was trying to show us that you can try on other people, but if your heart is somewhere else, it's not going to be fulfilling. For Ryan too, this all is part of the journey. Sleeping with someone else doesn't solve the emptiness he feels in his marriage. If anything, it proves to him that what he's missing is Lauren, not just companionship. So even though I don't agree with it, and many readers don't either, I honestly wish there was another way to do this, but I do understand why she wrote it for the plot. It made the separation messy, and real-life relationships are messy. They're not black and white, they're not clean-cut, you can't edit out the parts you don't like. And honestly, that discomfort is what made me think about this book long after I put it down. Okay, now let's talk about the 4 different moments that made me pause and just sit with the book for a bit. I'm gonna refer to them on my phone. The first one being the separation decision. When they first decide to take the year off, it's like a gut punch. Like, who actually does that? But the brilliance is that it's both radical and relatable. Because if you strip away the drama, that's what so many couples already do. They just emotionally check out instead of working through it. And Lauren and Ryan in the book just make it official. The second moment is Lauren's bond with her grandmother. This was hands down one of my most favorite parts of the the book. The way her grandmother speaks about love, loss, and the importance of choosing the same person over and over again. It feels so tender and full of wisdom. At one point, she says, "The problem with marriage is that it ends every day, and every day you have to start again." That line gives me chills. It reframed the whole story for me. Love isn't just one choice. It's a million tiny choices stacked together. The third moment is the letters. Oh my god, the letters. That was some of the most emotional writing in the whole book. They're pouring out everything they couldn't say to each other face to face. And it makes you wonder how many relationships would be saved in real life if people just wrote down what they thought. If they just said what they actually felt without feeling like they might be misunderstood. For me, the letters is where I saw the cracks starting to heal even before the reunion. And of course, the last thing is the ending. Let's talk about the reunion. Was it satisfying? For me, it was both yes and no. Yes, because they do come back together, and no, because it's not neatly tied up in a fairy tale bow. And I actually appreciate that, because love isn't like movies or the happily ever after that every single book seems to finish with. It's the quiet decision to forget everything and try again. And that's what Lauren and Ryan chose. Not perfection, not certainty, but another chance. And that felt real. And before I forget, can we just take a second to talk about Taylor's writing? I don't know if it's just me, but it almost feels like a therapy, but in a book form. She has this way of writing emotions that aren't polished or overly romanticized. They're raw, messy, and sometimes frustrating, but that's what makes it so relatable, because it doesn't glamorize marriage, love, it shows it as ordinary. The fights about nothing, the silence, the boredom, and yet it also shows that ordinary love is still worth fighting for. And that's what I respect about her writing, because she doesn't just give us drama just for the drama's sake. She makes us sit with the uncomfortable, honest truth that most of us try to avoid. So overall, I think After I Do is not a story about fairy tale of love. It's about the work of it, the effort, the rediscovering yourself in the process. I enjoyed it, and it was very, very different from my usual reads, but it gave me something to think about, to realize how important communication is in relationships. I definitely think it's worth the read. Is it perfect? No, but every book has its ups and downs. But I really want to know what you think. Do you agree how Lauren and Ryan handled their separation? Did the fact that they slept with other people make you mad? Or did it make the story more real to you? Because honestly, I'm still conflicted. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you so we can start a conversation. And if you like this video, give it a like and subscribe. It really helps my channel grow and expand our little community. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.